Good afternoon, evening for some folks. It is Monday, October 28th, and my name is Dr. Demia Thomas, and I am so glad to be here today to continue the much needed conversation around school leadership and providing a conversation and a space to engage. If you are joining in, feel free to drop comments. And if you are watching the replay, please feel free to share your comments down below. So, hello, courageous school leaders. As you know, some of you who know me, some of you who don't, know that my passion is to empower you, the school leader, with the confidence to lead. I truly believe that school leaders should not have to normalize exhaustion, right? And in order for that to happen, we need support as school leaders and we need action now, right? There's a couple of things that I believe really help a school leader to be successful so that exhaustion is not a normal thing for you in your life, okay? Which leads me to today's topic, which is about how to turn setbacks into stepping stones and how you can develop a resilient leadership team, okay? In my book, Decisions by Fire, which is going up in price, by the way, because I realize that it is a really valuable tool and kind of selling myself short with the work that I put into it. So the price is going up by $10 by next month. So the link for the lower price is available now. So if you want it at the lower price, you need to get it now. I'll drop the link in the comments, but it is going up by $10. I'm also going to have it available on Kindle, hardcover, and I'm working on the Audible right now. So in the book, each phase one is mind the gap, phase two is it's about the leadership team and systems, and phase three is about the culture. So in each of those phases, though, there's a component where the school leader is intently engaging with his or her leadership team, which is a crucial component for school success. And so today I just want to talk about and build on the conversation that we've been having for the past 2 weeks about morale, and talk about how you can turn setbacks into stepping stones and helping to build the resilience of your leadership team. Okay. So resilience is absolutely important. You know, I am in a couple of Facebook groups, leadership groups, and I'm constantly reading how school leaders are overwhelmed, exhausted. There are multiple demands, things that are happening in the school that are requiring their attention, where everything becomes a priority. And it is absolutely overwhelming for a lot of people, and rightfully so, right? And so it's so crucial to build your resilience, and in doing so, you are modeling for your staff how to be resilient, especially during setbacks, especially during the moments when you feel like you haven't made, or you've made 2 steps forward and feel like you're taking 3 steps back, right? And so today I'm going to share some practical strategies to help transform how you can think about and do and actually change your challenges into growth opportunities, right? Everything's about perspective. So if you go back and you look at the last 2 weeks where we talked about morale and how, as a school leader, morale is so critical in terms of retaining staff, because that is a frequent challenge that schools are having right now, is we are losing a lot of teachers, right? And while I know some people say, well, if they don't want to stay, let them go, but we are losing some good teachers too, right? And so the job of the leader is to ensure that you're creating an environment where people want to stay. And additionally, the job of the leader is to ensure that you are building your staff to be resilient, and you start with your leadership team because they are the tentacles of the school, okay? The setbacks are going to be inevitable. Think about in any walk of life. Setbacks are inevitable in your private life, when it comes to school, I don't care what it is. If you're a human being, walking, living, breathing, you have experienced setbacks, right? How you handle the setbacks is so critical as a leader, especially as a leader, because your staff is looking to you to see how you respond to those setbacks, right? How you respond to the setbacks will shape your team's culture. So today we're going to explore how to shift setbacks from being roadblocks into stepping stones for growth. Okay, so let's talk about team resilience first and what that means, right? So team resilience is really, when you think about resilience, and I talk about this deeply in my book around how the resilience that you have built over time becomes a source of power for you and a strength for you as a leader, right? It's embedded all throughout the book, and I provide various examples on how this surfaces in your leadership and leadership actions. And so let's think about the definition of resilience, right? It's a capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, right? Something happens to you, it sets you back, but you in that moment will decide whether or not you're going to stay set back or are you going to push through, right? And so it's not about perseverance and resilience are two different things, right? So your perseverance is how you're going to push through that difficult time. Resilience is how you bounce back from the difficulty. Okay, so there's a distinct difference between the two. So let's understand that, right? You can push through something, and then once you get through it, you are defeated, you're exhausted, you can't do anything else because you're exhausted from what you just went through, right? This is where resilience pops in. It's about recovery from the challenging situation. Okay. I'm not saying keep going through all difficult situations, right? That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is know the difference between the two and know when you need to pull on perseverance and when you need to pull on your resilience, right? And so resilience in your teams will maintain motivation, and it will also help your team be more productive when they are faced with challenges, right? So I want to stress the importance about how resilience is not about avoiding stress, because stress is going to happen. We are living, breathing animals, creatures, right? We are going to encounter stress, hands down. How we're managing it and overcoming it, in a way that strengthens the team is what we're talking about, right? And I hear people talk about, no, you don't want to manage stress. You shouldn't have stress at all. That is completely unrealistic to me. Stress is an inevitable part of life. How you handle it, though, and how, the lens that you have around the stressors is what's important here, right? I don't know how you can avoid stress. I don't know how that's even possible. But anyway, and so when you are changing your lens and how you're managing the stress, what end up developing a resilient team that will see challenges as a part of growth, right? We talk about mindset and how you can see mistakes and failures as opportunities for growth, right? This is what this is about. And so I want to talk about 3 practical strategies that you can begin to use immediately, okay? So let's talk about the first strategy. I don't have my whiteboard today. So the first strategy is I need you to normalize setbacks, okay? You need to create a culture where setbacks are seen as a normal part of growth and learning. Setbacks are a normal part of growth and learning, period. Someone makes a mistake, it's okay. What do we learn from that, right? So how you can do this as a leader is to reframe the challenges that you have. So use language that normalizes challenges as opportunities for growth. Instead of saying we failed, we learned something valuable, right? There's the glass half full, because now, even though you weren't successful, you and your team weren't successful in one endeavor, how are you going to learn from that, right? That's really important for you to reframe the challenges by using the proper language. And then another way that you can actually normalize setbacks is to, after a setback, hold a debriefing session with your leadership team. Hold a session with them that focuses on the lessons learned. Because a lot of times we talk about what we should do and what we can do. But as leaders, how many times do you actually create the time in the structure of your day so that you and your team can sit down and talk about the setbacks that you're experiencing and the learnings that happen from those setbacks, right? You can also share your personal stories, show them that you're human, right? But the most important thing is normalizing the setbacks that you experience as a school leader, that your school experiences, that your team experiences, and what are the learnings from that? And then the second part of that is creating the space, right? I know the day is busy. I know it. But you have to create the time for you and your team to sit back and debrief on what went wrong, not placing blame, right? It's very important that we're not finger pointing in this conversation. Is what can we learn so that we can do better the next time? What can we do differently to get a different result, right? So think about that. Tell me what your thoughts are about that. Drop some comments. If you're watching the replay, I'd love to hear your feedback on this. How are you using this in your setting? And if not, how can you begin to use this in your setting, right? We are in October. The first quarter is about to end. So now is a good time to think about how the first quarter is with your leadership team. Take the opportunity to carve out some time during a PD day and have a debriefing session about quarter one. What went well? What didn't go well? One of the things that I loved doing with my staff is stop, start, continue. It's a protocol, very simple. You have it on 3 sheets of Post-it paper around the room. Start, stop, continue. You can start the debriefing session by doing this protocol. What are the things that you want to stop doing that you were doing in quarter one, right? Because then you can have conversations about it. What are the things you want to stop doing, start doing, and continue to do because you feel like it's having an impact on your school environment, your school community, and your staff, right? This is a great way to start the conversation about like how you're debriefing on quarter one. You have to start doing it now because quarter one's about to end before quarter two. Don't get into the full throttle of quarter two. Have those conversations right now. Right? And then you can assign like who's going to be responsible for what. That's a delegation piece that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. You can go back and watch that. Okay. So remember, it's critical to reframe your setbacks as a part of the process, right? It's not the end of the road. Okay. When you share your stories, when you provide the opportunity, time and space, I talk about this in phase 3, creating the time and space so that you and your team can sit down and have true, honest conversations about where you are in your growth as a school and where you need to grow as individuals, as a part of a team. Okay, create the time and space. That's so critical. Here's the second thing that you can actively do right now to help build a resilient team. So the first thing was normalize setbacks. The second thing that you can do is encourage a growth mindset. I know we hear it all the time. It was a buzzword that was flying around for maybe about, I say almost 10 years now. It's been flying around really heavy. I know we brought it into our school environment at the middle school where we were teaching our middle school girls how to develop a growth mindset. It's equally as important for staff, for adults. So when you're cultivating a growth mindset where team members can see challenges as opportunities, they will develop their skills. Okay? One of the action steps that you can take, promote problem solving. As the principal of the elementary school, anytime a team member, because I remember feeling completely overwhelmed with all of the problem solving that was going on. And then eventually I was like, I asked them when they would come to me with an issue, well, what did you do? Pretty soon, I kept asking, like after asking each team member, well, tell me what solutions you came up with. They knew from practice, like I had to set the stage for what I was expecting. And because I kept asking them that, now when they came to me after a while, they had tried some things to problem solve before they came to me like, Ms. Thomas, here's what the problem is. Here's something that I tried and it's still ineffective. Let's troubleshoot on how we can work this out. Perfect. So now your brain has been on it as a team before you came to me, as a person before you came to me, right? Encourage problem solving. It helps them build their capacity to become effective leaders if they're part of your leadership team, right? The other piece is you're going to reward innovation. So when you're telling them and you're setting the stage and expectations for, I need you to figure this out before you bring anything to me, that's why you're part of this leadership team, right? Because you have shown the capacity to problem solve and troubleshoot on your own. And then we come together as a team. You can't meet all day long. There's a lot of moving parts as a school leader, right? I'm sure you know this. You live this every day. I lived it too. I understand. So when they begin to have innovative ideas and start to address challenges, recognize them for those efforts. Great job in thinking that through. I'm glad that you took the initiative to think that part through. Let's talk about it some more and figure out where there might be some gaps in the process, where we can kind of close the gap here. What's this learning opportunity? What did we learn from the approach that you took in solving this problem, right? Even if it doesn't yield immediate results, you still need to celebrate your staff, your leadership team specifically, because this is about your leadership team, how you're going to build resilience in your leadership team. You need to celebrate their efforts anytime they tried to troubleshoot something on their own before they brought it to you. Commend them every single time, because that is going to build this trigger in them where they're like, okay, let me do this every time. Whenever there's an issue, let me solve it first before I go to the principal. Okay. And again, we all know creating learning opportunities for your leadership team is critical for that. That's another whole part that I want to talk about, because these PDs, I sat in a PD the other day I couldn't believe it was actually happening. I digress. So remember, a growth mindset means that you're embracing challenges as stepping stones. Okay. Reward anytime you have seen a member of your leadership team trying to figure out a problem on their own without coming to you. Tell me what your thoughts are. Have you done this? If you haven't, what are some ways that you could do this? Especially now, this is the end of quarter 1. What are some ways that you can actually incorporate some of these practices now with your leadership team, right? So that's the second strategy that you can use, encouraging a growth mindset. The third and last strategy I want to talk about today is, it's simple, but it sounds simple, but a lot of leaders overlook this step. And again, it's because they're overwhelmed. Again, I do not believe school leaders should normalize feeling overwhelmed and feeling exhausted. It is not right. There are better ways to go about it, and we're going to figure this out together. The third strategy is to build a supportive environment, right? You have to ensure that your leadership team feels supported. Now, this is tricky because you as the leader taking on all of this, supporting your team, makes you, once you take, especially if you're an empath and you feel other people's stress and triggers and things like that, it can weigh heavy on you. And you need to be aware of that. Like, your emotional intelligence has to be consistent. Like, you have to be intentional and knowing the physiological changes that your body and mind are going through when you are actually supporting your leadership team. Be aware of that. Is your face getting hot? Is your heartbeat, moving faster? Are you making decisions on impulse? Think about those things as you are supporting your team, right? And know when you need to step away. But building a supportive environment is the third strategy, right? Ensure that they feel secure. Ensure that, when a challenge arises, that you're there to support them. One of the ways you can do this is establish a small group where team members can share their challenges. What does this require of you as a leader, though? This requires you carving out time. Carving out time to do this is so critical, because there's so many things moving in a building at once. You feel like you don't have the time to do it, but you have to create the time. And I'm telling you, the benefit is 10x. When you create the time for, not a griping session, but create the time where the team can come together and talk about the challenges that they're having and group solve on the solutions. There are protocols that are in place for that, right? Provide access to resources, making sure that you have a bank of resources. And here's the beautiful thing. You have a bunch of intelligent people on your leadership team. The work that they're doing can be compiled and created on a Google Drive, right? Where you are actually indexing it, or having your secretary index the resources that everyone has been creating for support. And one of the most important things that's so critical as a leader, as you are creating the culture, sustaining the culture in your building, these check-ins, these emotional check-ins are so critical. We're talking about building resilience in your leadership team. We're not robots. We have to. You as a leader, when you're feeling stressed and triggered, you go home, you talk to your spouse about it, your partner about it. You may call a friend on the phone. You may, whatever it is you do, there are ways that you are releasing the trigger, like the emotions and the stress that you have from your workday, right? Your staff, especially your leadership team, are feeling that too, because they're being pulled in many directions like you. So holding these brief check-ins with your leadership team helps build their morale, right? We often feel like, we got to do it all, but you don't, and you shouldn't. Because again, I do not believe school leaders should have to normalize exhaustion. We should not have to normalize exhaustion. Absolutely not, right? So resilience is not a solo act, leaders, right? It's built through consistent support and collaboration. So think about when you feel heard and supported, how do you feel? Your leadership team is going to feel the same way, right? And it helps you bounce back quicker when you have a setback. Okay. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you're watching the replay, tell me what you're thinking right now. How are you building a supportive environment in your school? And what are some things that are resonating with you? Or maybe you're like, you know what, Dr. Demia, I'm not quite sure. I don't agree with that. Like, I have this experience. Share it in the comments. Let's keep the conversation going. So the 3 strategies that you can use to help build resilience in your team. You're going to normalize setbacks. That is so important. The second one is you're going to encourage a growth mindset. And then the third strategy that you can use is build a supportive environment. Again, this is building on the previous 2 weeks on how to build high morale in your staff so that you can retain your teachers, retain your staff. This conversation today is specifically about your leadership team. Again, they are the tentacles of your work, right? So if you have any questions, drop it in the chat and I can respond as I'm going along. And I encourage you let's keep this conversation going, right? What feedback do you have? One thing that I do want you to do, and my contact information is rolling across the screen. I need you to think about one question, and you can either put it in the comments or you can shoot me an email so we can keep the conversation going. What is one challenge that your team recently faced, right? Think about one challenge that your team recently faced. How did you handle it? Keeping in mind the 3 strategies that I just shared with you, right? On how to build resilience in your team. You're going to normalize setbacks. You're going to encourage growth mindset, and you're going to create a supportive environment. So what is the challenge that your team recently faced that felt like a setback? How did you handle it? Did you do one of these 3 strategies when you were handling this setback with your team? I need you to reflect on that. Shoot me an email. Let me know. Drop it in the comments. Okay. And let's learn from each other's experience. So feel free to drop comments and keep the discussion going. So I want you to start implementing one of these strategies this week because this is the end of Q1. You need to get a clear idea. And one of the ones that I would truly suggest out of all 3 that you can implement this week is the first one, which is normalizing setbacks. And one of the ways to do that, to normalize the setback, is create a time and space for you and your leadership team to talk about what Q1 looked like. I talked about the stop, start, continue protocol. That can start the conversation. What do you want to stop that you did in Q1? What do you want to start? And what do you want to continue? That can start the conversation around how you're going to improve in Q2. Okay. And this is qualitative data. You know, I'm going to throw the data piece in there. Everything is about the data. Okay. So I'm pushing you and encouraging you, right? Because I don't want y'all exhausted anymore. I don't want that. We're going to stop that. And we're going to break that norm. I am encouraging you to implement the first one this week in preparation for Q2. Y'all got it? Okay. This week. Next week, I will not be on. I'm going to be on a separate podcast and I'll show it as a replay, but I won't be on next Monday. And so I really want to stress that the work that you're doing is important and needed. So make sure that you are continuing in very intentional ways, right? Implementing some of the strategies and being really intentional, and keep a lookout for my webinar that's coming up on November 20th. I'm going to share the link soon with more information, so keep your eyes and ears out for that. And as always, leaders, keep going. Okay, keep going. Y'all have a fantastic afternoon.